KJ, welcome to Spherical. So glad to have you here. Longtime friend, and in many ways, you gave me the impetus to start this whole company, which was amazing years ago when we started collaborating with Travel Tripper and Highgate. And so grateful for all of your mentorship and support and friendship all these
Absolutely.
years. And happy to have you.
Thank you. First of all, Adam, you're right. I have known you for many, many years, and it's amazing to see where you've progressed and how you've built Spherical. It's amazing to see the culture and how you're forward thinking in your approach of clearly focused on design and lifestyle and the rest of it. So that also appeals to me. So I'm glad you did that.
Is there an Apple of the hotel industry now? Will there be in the future? And what would it look like?
That's a tough one. Will there be an Apple? I don't know, but one thing is clear, obviously. This is 10% of the world's GDP in terms of an industry. So the market is massive. So I think the level of technology spend within this industry is not the same as the others. So even though you have breakouts of companies, you're probably going to have hotels not spending enough on technology to drive that level of a behemoth style Apple, you know? But I think there is opportunity to become large enough in this space. A couple of breakouts will happen and people will get pretty big.
Via M&A. You think the path to that is M&A versus someone coming in from scratch and building something new based on all the information that we have? You think you have to get there by M&A?
Correct. The reason is this has to be some level of consolidation through M&A, because otherwise you're talking about a hyper parabolic growth of a company, which we've all seen that movie before, because if they take billions of dollars and try to build something, it doesn't really end well. And the reason why it does is there's time needed to build a foundation, structure, people, processes, hiring, all of that. So if you're here and say, I can do something very quickly in 3 to 5 years and build that kind of a behemoth or company, it's very, very difficult. But a combination of being prudent organic growth strategy with the right culture of people, the approach and vision for the future, the awareness that customer is very critical, that you need to take care of the customer, not for today, but how do you take that customer on the journey with you? You don't have to always say, hey, these are the customer requirements, and you perform that, you will miss out the future. Apple didn't do that. They built a futuristic product that they knew would be applicable, and they took the people with them. So that's the kind of stuff that needs to be done. But at the same time, many of these companies will have to fix the plumbing to make sure you can have it free flowing and not just have the futuristic vision. So that's what we see across a lot of our companies trying to do, is building that platform for scale is critical. And then you can do it with a combination of organic growth as well as M&A growth, which will help everybody, including the actual customer themselves, not having to deal with too many people.
So the element of Apple that I've seen as missing in the hotel industry is what Steve Jobs understood that Bill Gates path he didn't take, is that Steve Jobs saw the intersection of design and creative approach with technology, and he saw that creating amazing technology products, yes, you need the specs and the text and all that kind of stuff, but package it in a way that's super user-friendly, that's beautifully designed and has all that element. And to me, I haven't seen that approach anyone take there's a scale element to it, but there's also an approach of that intersection of creative and technology. I wonder if you see that happening anywhere, or if there's space for more of that type of the core element back to the root of what made Steve Jobs successful.
Leave size alone. Obviously, if you're looking at the design element, the creativity there, along with the technology, you're right. I mean, you go back a few years, or even if you look at it now, it's looking at some of the technology systems, they look archaic. They have no design element to them. It's so difficult to use. There are a few companies which have taken the approach of level of design with the technology component, especially in the user interface, be it for the final user, whoever that may be, or the actual back end of a system in terms of how it looks. What we've seen that really works is any of our companies that have taken a simplistic view, like how do you keep it really simple? You don't need a manual to operate this technology system. Along with the good-looking part, and I always like the design too, so it's very critical, but along with something that looks good, it makes people feel good about wanting to engage with that technology. A classic case that we have, one of our companies is obviously with Logic. It's a revenue management system. It's super complex. But the fundamental thesis is there is keep it simple. You don't need a manual to operate it. And the UI is all about drag and drop using the same tiles or icons that you have on an Apple iPhone, but you can drag and drop stuff in there and view your data in different segments. Then we take the OTA Insight model, which is another great company, which very simple, very simple. You keep it simple with basic design elements, and that's great. But at the same time, design being important, some people shouldn't take it too much to design to make it too cool looking, because that can have impact on performance, on all of that. So I think the simplicity, sleek, clean lines with a good looking user interface, I think is very critical. So to your point, the more of that you see, I think it's important. So you want that. You want some of these companies to actually move in that same level. Why not? It's possible.
Do you think the bigger M&A plays of all of these legacy companies can get to that level of streamlined efficiency from a design perspective and just generally operationally?
So the way you look at it is, it might have to be a twofold process, because it's impossible to take, if a company is doing a lot of M&A and trying to move everything together in one platform overnight, it's not going to be possible. So you might see a sort of a user interface version where it's a layer on top of older engines that are there, but the user interface looks good. So that could be a first phase. While they work on integrating all these platform systems at the core level, and have a plan of bringing a more design-friendly, user-friendly, overall integrated approach with the core system over time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the right approach to do in a phased manner.
Yeah. So back to AI and just this huge boom that's happened of certainly of attention, but also innovation and all the cascading implications of that, both on the practical immediate applications and also I imagine on the implications of the type of companies that you're working with and talking to, that there's going to be an acceleration of innovation through all of that. So what are you seeing in that world?
I mean, what's clear is if you see, everybody's seen the report, a couple of things are happening. AI is going to contribute $4.4 trillion into the global economy. I think it's in the next, by 2030, I think, or so. This is annually. So you can imagine the size of that. So, and this is a McKinsey report. It's not my number that I've thrown out there. I feel this is not one of those fads. There's been a lot of AI over the years where you use computing power to help drive efficiency. Artificial intelligence in this case is all about increasing productivity. It's not about just replacing jobs. People are saying, oh my God, lawyers are going to be replaced, bankers are going to be replaced, revenue folks are going to be replaced, every single job is going to be replaced. If you look at it with that approach, it's scary. What this is going to do is it's going to take away 60 to 70% of repetitive tasks or tasks that can be automated by a system that is intelligent but doesn't have the human brain. What does that do to you? It gives you 70% more time to focus on creativity, strategic thinking, and all aspects of further productivity. And when you have that, that's going to drive economies even further in their core productive, because productivity increases that thing. So overall economies will start doing very, very well if they take that approach.
As the personal computer didn't eliminate jobs, it created more jobs. And as the internet didn't,
Correct.
take away jobs, it created more jobs. And
Correct.
as the cell phone and
Yeah,
social media
you're
and
right.
global communication, and by the way, take it further back to electricity, you need these
You're right.
building technologies that
I love that analogy that you've done.
Yeah.
Actually, you go back and see every single major invention. You're right. People should actually refer to that and say, this didn't happen. How is this going to be a job killer? How is this going to take away what I'm doing? It's going to make you more efficient. It's going to make all of us more efficient if you adopt it correctly and if you don't have a fear for it. That's important.
it just continues to unlock more and more abundance, opportunity, all of that.
Correct.
What have you seen 20 years ago or so? You started at Highgate as Chief Revenue Officer?
Yeah.
You were
I didn't start as Chief Revenue Officer.
Yeah,
that would have been cool.
yeah. You got to that, but you really were, just such a,
Driving revenue,
made such an iconic impact on, as far as I can see globally in terms of, establishing the whole reputation of Highgate and revenue management and the global importance of yielding rates to drive profitability for owners. How have you seen that field evolve in the last 20 years, layered with technology, again adding efficiency to that? And where do you see that going in terms of how revenue management has sort of and technology have intersected?
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun to watch it, obviously. Going back more than 20 years, it was like revenue management is something that needs to be done, to how it became mainstream important for owners, operators, everyone to say, hey, we need to drive this. We need this to be one of the front and center. And revenue management evolved beyond just yielding, and it evolved into not just pricing, but the distribution part of revenue management, the sort of like a marketing part of it, because how do you drive an added demand into that piece also made it more complex as well as more interesting when you're not just sitting there waiting for demand to happen. So it's evolved in a fair level, but I still see a lot of people still stuck in traditional methods of huge amounts of data processing and reporting versus forward thinking, proactively managing the future versus reactively dissecting the past. I think the more that you can bring in the tools to take care of those dissection of the past and bringing in those, hey, this is what we've seen based on the past, and this is how you can proactively alter the future, is critical. I don't think we have got there in a way. Overall, as a community, in terms of the technology, which exists, but you can keep driving it faster to make sure that you get there and be super efficient across the revenue management space, the distribution space, and how it also ties into the marketing and demands generations piece too.
How do you see the interactions of branding and brands, that the impact that brands have in generating and retaining demand in the purchasing decision cycle, and touches on what you're saying in marketing, but the intersection of that and revenue management and how the ultimate purchasing decision of the customer, that is, there's the price, there's the location, there's the promotion, there's all the fundamentals. What's your view on that?
I think price is ultimately driven by the need for that particular location or product or service, right? In this case, if it's a hotel, it's a culmination. The better you have in terms of the positioning of the hotel, the willingness for people to pay more because they feel this is differentiated from other products around them, that all helps drive the price. They are intangibles in the revenue management side of it. So knowing that and saying, hey, there is a way we can drive pricing correctly by adding these elements of differentiated product, be it a lifestyle hotel, be it the cool F&B, the cool community vibe, all of that. Where brands fit in, brands have become today almost like a loyalty piece only. It's all about how many members you have, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million. they've lost the distribution side of it totally. Today, you're going to see a lot of hotels, branded or not, get a ton of business from non-direct channels where customers buy, but they buy through other sources because they're either members of that club, they get deep discounts, and it's easier. So I think this whole level of recognition, and brands have to stay relevant by, first of all, they go towards the owners, and the owner feels comfortable that, hey, by having a brand, I can sleep at night. By having a brand, the bank says, oh my God, I think I'll be better protected. But on the other side, you see potentially hoteliers who have vision, who push the envelope and say, I don't need to be just okay. I need to be really good. And they build these fabulous, differentiated hotels. I mean, classic cases, I love the One hotel side of it. You just feel it. You go in there, everything about that place is great. The decor, to the green effect, to even composting, to like the menu and the stuff, like everything feels, there's a whole connection. And no wonder they could probably charge great pricing. They are a sort of a smaller brand today, but they're not massive. They're not creating that, but there is that need for it. So I think those are the ones that have an identity versus just a loyalty program or a discount or pricing or distribution driving it.
Yeah.
So I think that will, encompassing that along with the rest of it, will create great equity value. It may not let people, like the bankers, feel much better because they only make the money that the loan that you have to repay them. They don't make any upside of the equity. So, why should I do that? You know?
Mm-hmm. So if Marriott and the big brands, don't own hotels anymore, don't operate hotels anymore, and the distribution side is largely commoditized, and as you say, the loyalty is a big part of that. I frankly was, watching Marriott in the pandemic eliminate their entire field marketing team was quite a shocker to me because it feels to me, in terms of delivering value to owners, that they should be a digital marketing powerhouse. They could be a digital marketing powerhouse.
Correct. They
could be a technology powerhouse that's got some technology platform that's amazing. And I beyond the loyalty program element of it and the sort of brand recognition, what's the value that they're truly providing, and are they truly, is this model the model of the future for a hotel? Is that the hotel platform of the future? Is there space for other elements of priority thinking within that? What's your thought of where these big players, as their business model evolves?
Yeah, I think the reason why I bring up loyalty is there's always going to be a place for the big brands to exist and continue to do well. It's not doomsday for them, but it's a level of how much of a role do they play. The reason why, with the loyalty points, there are still a lot of people who stay in hotels because they can get points where they can redeem it for personal stuff. They can take their family. They work very hard. They work 30, 40 weeks a year, and then they go for a vacation somewhere. So that's important. Then you see the others who say, hey, even on a work trip or even on other stuff, the experience is more important to me. I am not in it for just getting points and being a workhorse and then once or twice a year take my family out. They want to feel that community kind of approach, especially in today's world when you've moved to this balanced work-life ecosystem that you see, where not everybody's in the office all the time, and you want to be connected even when you're on a work trip. So you're going to see companies that, or hotels that actually differentiate themselves differently and attract people, both on the business and the leisure side at the same time, and they get attached to that, emotionally attached in a different way, which might be more powerful than the power of points. But for some people, they say, hey, you know what? This is important to me. That's all I want to do. So there will be that coexistence that will always be there.
All of the big brands have become much more of a portfolio of brands, of a lot of different brands. And I've felt, certainly from a consumer perspective myself, I've never wanted sameness as my objective. I want something that's actually a great product. And it's looking at a core that has acquired 12 different lifestyle brands, put it under NS Moore, Sharon Pastrisha, that whole conglomerate. But it's in some ways it's a little bit of a graveyard of the previous visionary brands. You've got like Traeger's, Morgan, whatever's left of Morgan's Photography. You've got this, but what do you see on that in terms of the sameness of like the hard traditional brand of Marriott versus this diversification, and that kind of consumer lens of there's a trend of them having many brands, not just one brand. How do you see that?
I mean, the big brands are always going to have, I think it's Marriott has 30 brands or so addressing limited service to extended to Moxie sort of lifestyle stuff, and Marriott's and Ritz-Carlton's at the higher level. So they're appealing to different segments all across, and I think that's a smart strategy that they want to do across the spectrum and not have one fits all. But you're right, I love some of the NS Moore brands. They're really cool stuff, especially the original visionaries. And it just shows that if you create some of these cooler concepts, there is a market. And the reason why it exists is the internet is one thing, and the transparency, bringing the content out to these. You can easily bring that thing. You can easily talk about it. People will see you. You can differentiate it through what you're doing through social media and the rest of it. How do you bring good content? And there are people who are going to be looking for this content and wanting to that. One important stat I have to tell you is 80% of all luxury travel in 2030 will be from the millennials. From the millennials right now.
80% globally.
2030, yeah. I think you can see a couple of reports, you could research it, which shows, yes, you need to focus on the baby boomers and every other category. But if you want to catch that wave, you got to be thinking there. And what do they want? And that's also important. I would web in the technology part here. How do you bring in some of these Web3 AI elements into it? Because you're going to be talking to that audience. So think about that part. Even when you create lifestyle and luxury and everything else, it's not just about the product.
Huge.
It's how do you get to them? How do you use the technology to get to that audience who's grown up with it more than anybody else?
Huge.
So that's a real stat. And it's important for hotels to look at that, and it's important for companies serving hotels or technology companies serving that to know this is the movement that's happening. This is the wave. On the same side of it too, trust me, the hotel people working on technology, I'm sure, I don't know what the stat is, maybe it's 60% or whatever the numbers I'm making it up, will be the users, millennials will be the users of these technology systems. So better make sure you have the good UI, the good design, the good, I don't need a manual.
On the B2B side.
On the B2B side. Imagine if you don't have that.
I know, hugely.
And then they will talk about it.
That's part of this element of like the modern company of like the Apple reference of like ease of use and all of this is that like, if people are coming in and everything else, all the other systems they use in their life are modern and clean and easy to use and all of that, and they're working effectively with an MS-DOS kind of computer.
Imagine using an iPhone and then going back to work, it's like, holy shit, how am I going to do this? Where do I go for this? Oh my God, I'm having this system issues. I can't even figure out where to go. It's
just we'll use cool. Metaverse, Web3. You've done some tests at the refinery. Yeah. What's your perspective on the bigger game of Metaverse / VR for hotels?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of bulky virtual reality headsets and people wearing that and figuring out what they want to do and lead an alternative life versus the real life. I think there was a lot of hype that was created before, as we have seen with Facebook. You can track the stock. The minute they said, hey, we're focusing more on AI versus the metaverse, the stock has exploded, which is what people wanted to see and hear. But that doesn't mean to say that doesn't exist. Where did the metaverse come from is an important question to first understand. Where did they come from? It all started with gaming. And gaming suddenly is like, oh, people sitting and playing these hardcore video games of Fortnite and the rest of it. Yes, it is. But if you see some of these actual gaming or these games, they're created in phenomenal technology with Unreal Engine and all the rest of it, like some really cool stuff which can be used to actually create even movies, like very close to reality kind of movies. That's the same kind of gaming. It is important if you can figure out how to use some of that technology in building content and then coupling that with AI. Imagine using AI to drive content, futuristic content. And the reason why I say, I'll use a metaverse example, but if you have a video of a hotel or a virtual tour, it's almost like one way. With the metaverse, you can almost create two-way. You can interact with going to the hotel lobby and seeing it back and how you look there in your virtual world, sort of. So using that as a marketing tool is huge. And you still may not have a lot of people on the actual metaverse. It might be a small number. But you can use that technology to create stuff even on your own website and content, which is powerful itself. And then as you see the progress of more and more people adopting some level of metaverse and virtual reality, that will just augment the real life situation, is the way I feel it. I don't think it's going to replace it. So, and then when you do that, if you stayed, for example, in the Refinery or the Park Lane or another really cool hotel that you may think of, and then you go back home, the whole concept of NFT. What is an NFT? It's that digital transaction that you can continue to enjoy. You don't just get an email. Once you get that NFT, we can update that to you with all the content automatically on your NFT, and you see what's happening in that, and you're almost tied into the hotel. And so you're using the product side of it, the marketing side of it, and the technology side of it together in a way that is applicable for hotels. So most hospitality folks or even the technology side are afraid of that. And if you look at gaming, they're on a whole different path. They're like light years ahead, but can you bring some of that into hospitality tech?
Yeah.
Which is why I think we have a panel of the gaming experts, but how can they distill it down to hospitality?
Yeah.
And what people can gather out of that is probably going to be critical.
Yeah. So yeah, all that on the metaverse side coming out of the gaming piece, and I thought that Zuckerberg's keynote on it was very centric on that like virtual world side of the metaverse, which I know you've been exploring and super interesting for the interactive side, the gamification, all of that.
Yeah.
Another angle of it that I'm super interested in is the real world side of it.
Yeah.
So not the virtual world, but the real world, and Apple's release of the Vision Pro last month, and the implications of some of that in that it's got 9 cameras and it can shoot our conversation in 3D real time. And by the way, with this camera we're shooting on, we can get a 3D 180 degree lens that shoots it, full at the quality of the human eye.
Correct.
And what does that start to look like tied to real travel experiences that you can have when you're immersed in that full 3D reality of the real world, and you can go to virtually to the Amman Resort and experience these fabulous places, but also, almost Black Mirror-esque to kind of be in someone else's plane of view. And so I think that the Vision Pro element is, there were VR headsets. There were smartphones before the iPhone. Yeah. And Apple, having worked on this for so many years and making a play and a statement, I wonder if you think anything's going to change because Apple's taken a place, and then what it means for that kind of reflection of real world kind of articulation.
I mean, first of all, I think the original vision for Apple and Tim Cook was always like, I don't want a bulky headset for people to be interacting with. So I 100% agree. I can't imagine wearing a bulky headset, no matter if it's made from Apple or Microsoft or Meta or anybody, It's just too much. And I've read many articles about people who spend 6 hours, 8 hours in there. And first of all, I think it's good that Apple has got into it. And I think the reason why, and you probably hear about it, is the way they priced it, I think $34.99 or something, is not to make it sound ridiculous. I think it's to get enough of a certain number of users, control users, where they can continue to study behavior, patterns, what are people interested in, what are they looking at, and then define use cases from that and figure out a redesign, which they're really good at. So I think this one has been a tough nut to crack, unlike everything else. So they're probably going to be using that to say, what's the next leap? It has to be simple. It can't be, even if it's 9 cameras, even if it's the rest of it. People are very fickle. They're not going to be, they don't even have time to even look at their phones for like 30 seconds today, or they're looking at their phones for 30 seconds. That's easy. So taking this up and doing it is a task in itself. So, but I think it's going to evolve. I think there's probably going to be some level of, probably, I can't say this because there are 100 specialists about that, but imagine the hologram kind of stuff approach that's there, that you start seeing it with some sort of lens. Who knows, you know? But I think we're far away from real augmented reality, virtual reality at mass level, at least from now.
Yeah.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
So I think you have to use some elements of that and bring it into 2D and then make it easy, because there's that mass adoption saying this is created on this, and then probably people will start moving into 3D in some level.
And then ultimately, of course, it will get smaller and smaller, more compact, and the element that they have that of a mixed reality headset versus virtual reality, I think that's super interesting, that you see through it, that it's goggles, what happens when that's glasses, and then the technology innovations that they're doing with, eye tracking, that you can, make it click on it based on what you look at, that there's no handhold to it, that it's based on your hand gestures, and spatial audio element. Like it's very.
They're almost like
putting
a computer in your brain.
It's the starting point of that,
Yes,
right?
which is scary.
I think we're, Elon is fully doing that, with his Neuralink. So, speaking of Elon, any take on Zuck's launch of Threads this last week? And have you watched that at all?
I want to see that fight.
You want to see that fight?
But it's going to be 2 categories, right? Heavyweight Elon versus lightweight Zuckerberg. And imagine the two of them going head to head. And obviously Zuckerberg's real fit. But you never know with Elon what he might do, Yeah. He's quite capable. I mean, he's way smarter than a lot of us. Maybe it's all a marketing ploy. That could be, but he's done well.
I frankly think that, Twitter was a big part of how we got our start. 2009 and the Roger Smith Hotel. Brian Simpson was one of his girlfriend
Well, you
at the time.
mentioned Threads. I was talking about the fight.
Versus
Threads.
Threads, the fight about Threads, but
everybody says like it started there before and Threads launched.
But that
30 million subscribers.
It hit 70. It hit 70.
Okay, that was
over the weekend.
Over the day, like the first day.
Yeah,
it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, so I think it's Twitter was such an amazing open platform of open connection, open communication. In my view, Elon's got plenty of ways to make plenty of money in other places. It has nothing to do with him trying to make money on it, that he saw the bigger power of this open forum and connection. And I think that I'm quite excited by it of
Threads
Meta getting into that space for the same reason that Elon's excited about it, and regardless of any kind of competition and this kind of thing, that what is important about that platform is open text-based communication, open dialogue, global forum. And of course, like, I've loved the Instagram era. I grew up as a photographer and video and visual content. I love all of that. And yet it's a limitation versus what was powerful about Twitter. And I love that Threads launched with the @ symbol as the icon, which is about one-to-one connection and community and all of that. So I think it's gonna be super interesting to see how that whole thing plays out.
I think competition is going to spur innovation no matter what. So if you have 2 behemoths in the same category, they're going to compete to try to drive the best innovation there. So I think that's going to be good. So.
Space hotels. I've heard that 2025 is going to be the first contract for a like starting of an idea of space hotels. We've got billionaires going after a space race in 10, 20, 30, 50 years.
Yeah.
Is there going to be already on Fifth Avenue? There's a Virgin Galactic is publicly promoting private, space travel. Any thought on that?
I mean, Virgin Galactic has been in real big trouble, obviously, trying to get everything ready. They've been behind. I mean, it looks like we're trying to conquer a lot of frontiers. I mean, that whole submersible experience of going and seeing the Titanic was like going and seeing deep in the ocean when you can't go to space travel. It's all about adventure tourism, right? Clearly adventure tourism is here. I mean, what do you do after you make $1 billion? You got to do something else, get your excitement going, do something crazy. So it looks like people are going to continue to drive that. And if it costs $250,000 to go to space or $250,000 to go to the bottom of the ocean, I think it's going to continue.
We're going to do it.
No matter what, people are doing it. So that's going to happen. I mean, there's no way I'm sitting on something to go to space very soon unless it's fully tested. But at least it just shows that the human being is so powerful that they are exploring and pushing the boundaries of our own existence. Hopefully they don't kill us all in that process, but you can see that. And the way I always look at the analogy is like, we are so small on Earth, and Earth is so small in our own solar system. And then you have the galaxy, which is like, I mean, you're talking about millions and light years, and we've been around for like billion years, like huge, But the human mind is still so powerful to try to figure out that. So that's an exciting part of it. It just shows that all of us have something in us that we can, if that's possible, anything is possible for all of us to really do things that we want to do.
And so often, I think that we lose sight of that scale of time and space.
Yeah.
And that when we look at, horizons of technology of a few years, a few decades, like what does the world look like in 100 years, in 1,000 years, in a few thousand years?
Yeah.
And the scale of human innovation that's happened just in my lifetime, in 38 years, much less my grandfather's lifetime. Grandfather had the first car, right?
Yeah.
So just 3 generations. And that, and then take it back to Christopher Columbus sailing across the sea. Like it's like, the Star Trek space, the final frontier, like it's unquestionably inevitable. And to me, it feels like a bit of like a setup of the next 100 years, how long it takes. But there's a bit of a like start of Star Wars that feels like to me.
Probably is. But I want to go back to, again, AI for one part, because I think it's important to understand this. And AI and gaming, I'm sort of like connecting the dots here. You've heard of NVIDIA, obviously, right? And NVIDIA is now a $1 trillion+ company. What do? The biggest thing is everybody says, okay, it's an AI company, but they make chips that are going to power this massive AI revolution and adoption. But we all know Intel. At one point in time, 99% of all chips in all these smart machines, computers and phones and all that was Intel. NVIDIA was all about the graphics card and interface and all about gaming. They built it out there. Why is it important? Intel was a simple processor. You can look at it as like you're going to Whole Foods to shop. You take a massive cart, go to every aisle, pick up the milk, the eggs, the vegetables, all of that stuff. It takes you 25 minutes and you come back to the cash registry. What NVIDIA did is, think about you go into Whole Foods and you have 10 shoppers. Each of them have an instruction of what to pick up. And they come back in 3 minutes and your entire grocery shopping is done. That is the power of computing. That is what is driving AI. Speed. That is what is driving those chips they're going to be the forefront of this technological revolution. It's a simple analogy of that shopping with one cart versus 10 shoppers. and in that speed, they come back, you can drive computing power.
Unbelievable.
That is what was going to help push AI. So the stock is real because the technology is there to help that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the scale of it layered all on top of these technologies layered on top of each other, it's really unbelievable the speed to which also that's going to cause further tech innovation.
Yeah.
Have you explored it all on the AI side of like AI writing code and how legitimate that side of things is? Like, is it actually going to support companies on that level? Obviously the text-based element is so big now, but
obviously ChatGPT came up with in a big way, right? I think it was November of last year, and it exploded. They couldn't even keep control of the number of users who want to do it, who wanted to get onto it. But now you see the number of actual users actually starting to drop in engagement with ChatGPT. But then you have a lot of companies that want to use that technology in their core applications. And I'm already starting to see it in hospitality tech, especially in chatbots, and how do you drive efficiency using AI? Can you automate 70% of your tasks of interacting with a staff member, interacting with a guest? That can be driven by AI. Call centers, like you don't have to go and call a call center, but you could be talking to an AI for 70% of the task or 80%, and that's trained. And then you need only 20% of people to oversee that. So all that's happening. There is that innovation that is already in motion in hospitality tech today. So this is real, and I think it's going to continue in that mold. The question is, this is definitely not hype. There was a lot of hype even with the launch of ChatGPT, but now it's a question of getting true use cases by tech providers.
And does it get the intersections with virtual assistants and even smart home type technology, and even getting into robot type technology? Like, will that impact the experience of being in a hotel room? Like, how does that start to become like a hospitality? How does it apply to hospitality as a concept?
Yeah, so there's one actual topic, actually. The conference is all about human touch versus tech of touch. Which one is critical? So that's actually going to be interesting. I don't think technology is going to make hospitality interaction less personal. I think you can use technology to drive more personal, high-level engagement. If you have a lot of the tasks done before a guest arrives at the front desk, you can talk to the guest. You can be personal. You don't have to sit behind the counter and say, driver's license, credit card, please. None of that stuff. And it's just robotic. Why would you have a human perform a robotic task in front of you and it's not personal? Have a robot or automation or AI perform that so you can be a human.
I love it.
So that's what you have to look at.
I love it. One of your bigger plays with the Travel Tripper, Pegasus, Sendine, M&A play, I've felt like from a distance that one of the core fundamental theses is about unified guest profiles for a variety of reasons. How do you see that layer of it in terms of really custom experiences, custom communication, all of that powering the information that we have on the individual customer? Is there intersection there, and how does that all tie together?
Yeah, so I think the whole thesis, the fundamental thesis of the guest journey is always there. Right from the research stage, finding the content to make you want to plan a trip, but then there are also people who want to go on a trip. So then there's the booking phase. Then there's that constant CRM phase where you're interacting with the customer. On top of that, you put the pricing side of element into it because you can understand guest propensity to pay. You put all of that. That's almost like the guest journey before they stay. And then you have a whole host of new communication and technology comes. It's almost like a handshake. What happens to the guest journey after they check in and then till they check out, and then post that? So there are 3 stages, right? It's almost the guest journey before they experience the product, in in a hotel or while they're experiencing it, and post that. How do you connect with that using CRM and loyalty there? So the key is, I don't see many companies delving into the entire aspect. But you see some really good players, like I think this combination with Sendine is do everything well before the guest comes in, and make sure there's a fabulous handshake to the technology side of it in stay. And then there's a handshake beyond that to the next level of people who keep that communication and guest engagement going.
Yeah.
But over time, you might see somebody who does all of that. Imagine.
Yeah.
That could be hugely powerful. Then there are no silos.
Yeah.
So that's the key.
And I also see opportunity in the connectivity to social media with all of that guest experience, because we all live on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and now Threads and this
You
kind
do,
of...
I don't, but I know it.
Many people do.
I know.
There are a lot of people that do.
Exactly, but that's true.
Not you, but lots of people. And I one of the tools that Sendine had that I think they had to eliminate tied to GDPR was a connectivity to social media profile, connecting social media profiles with guest profiles so that you could get a pre-arrival list where you see this person stayed here 5 times and spent $10,000 and has 20,000 followers on Instagram, and here's the connect link to that, and also here's their Twitter account or their Threads account. And that you can have a almost social hospitality concierge type function that interacts with people on the platforms that they're at. And to me, there's a holy grail around that, which I've been after since 2009 when we started on Twitter, which was like, we were so about using social media as a connectivity standpoint of a like one-to-one communication. And I feel like there's a big thing if those dots can connect to say, hey, we know who they are, we know how much money they spent, there's a loyalty element, and there's a connection to word of mouth on social, engagement, all that. So there's more to be done there.
Unfortunately or fortunately, we are going to have to work around government regulation no matter where.
Right.
And government regulation is important in some cases, but in some cases it also inhibits kind of that, what you want to do for the actual experience of the guest. So you're stuck in that realm. I mean, the whole exposure of moving to a cookieless world, and then people are going to start focusing on first party data. I think it's going to become even more important to know your customer, to engage with your customer, you can bring in new customers using marketing techniques, but then holding on to that customer. So I think there's more relevance now for the companies that actually do that part well, are the ones that are going to really stand out in your space too, in social media. How do you continue that engagement and not just be a post? And one thing I would add to this is, it's important to know one of the biggest applications for AI is going to be content creation, which is the space that you're in, and I keep talking about that. So anybody who's into web content, social media, Twitter posts, name it, all the kind of stuff getting out there pretty quickly, you can automate 60 to 70% of that content to be done not by a human, but by AI. And then you need to have that personal touch on top of that to make sure the content doesn't feel spewed out from a machine.
I think that's
and
the
then you will
connection.
have the machine starting to understand the creative side of the elements to even get smarter to say, hey, how do I bring the personal element into that content that's going to be created? And then you will start having other AI machines to detect what content is original content, what is going to be AI content, what is going to be a mixture. So there's going to be a whole slew of stuff happening.
It's wild.
But imagine you can type in today in certain AI generative tools, I want an offer for package promotion at the Refinery Hotel or the Park Lane, couples, romantic getaway, 3 nights, press a button, it will generate an image. It will generate the copy, and that's ready to go. Imagine going through the hoops and the loops you have to do today to try to get that, get creative, get this, get the offer done. You can be creating that more and more because you're combining text with image creation and the rest of it.
Yeah,
Text is
unbelievable.
what drives everything else.
Unbelievable. I also love what I'm seeing in terms of some of like the mid-journey, the image creation
Yeah.
side of things in terms of creative innovation, like just even leading into like architecture and interior design and like supporting creatives to be more creative by being able to very
Correct.
quickly imagine a whole world. And like what I experience on my Instagram algorithm, I get a lot of these AI generated
Yeah.
artwork and things like this, but to me it's like we are more rapidly imagining a future that very quickly that I think is going to power creatives in a
Yeah.
big way on that it's there's efficiency leading into
Yeah.
innovation also from a design and creative, and I feel like that power is it's the human ingenuity that's going to drive the creative explosion. And I feel like we're going into like a whole big creative opportunity that's not like, as things that are numerical and analytical are
Yeah.
commoditized,
Yeah.
very important, but the computer's smarter than us, and that fuels an opportunity for us to be much more creative and expressive, and
True.
an opportunity for that. So
Yeah,
I think there's
and
a
I
huge
think
world
I
of
think
that.
from the minute you have artists and creative adopt new technologies, it's going to take a whole new spin on its own.
so.
You have arts, culture, fashion, lifestyle. You put it all together. We are actually in that space. People be able to create new concepts of hotels,
Exactly.
and you get 4 ideas, and then you refine it, versus having somebody come up with 4 ideas and then refining it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be that explosion, and it's important to have creative side of it bought into it and using it. I think that's going to happen.
I think I'm super excited
Yeah,
about all that
DALI,
and,
Midjourney, all of that.
Yeah, all that. Covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
The last piece is short-term rentals, that whole space,
Yeah.
technology, investment there, like hotels, this being a bigger lodging category.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that the alternative lodging space obviously had a big boom year in 2020, 21, 22. It started tapering off because people wanted to go back to hotels also in some way. But this is here to stay. It's going to continue to grow. And there will be a balance between the actual hotels as well as short-term rentals. So it's an important space to be part of. What's also going to happen is there's going to be what I feel is there's going to be sort of like an intersection of hospitality and short-term rental, because people want to work, they want to live at the same time, they want to have extended periods where they can work out of somewhere. It's already happening. There's that movement towards it. So from our perspective, we've obviously invested in short-term rental companies too, because we see that. In fact, in OTA Insight, as part of it, we bought a short-term rental data company, Transparent, which we'd also invested in. So it was perfect. And now we're marrying that short-term rental data with hotel data. And it's a powerful experience for people to know that. Because somebody coming for a weekend with a family may not be on that particular set of apartments, may not be on that hotel's comp set list, but they should be, because people are going to go there. Nurses staying for an extended 2-3 weeks, or hospitals are going to be staying somewhere before they stay in hotels. One of the biggest requirements of hotels today is interconnecting rooms. It's always been there. But hotels always said, like, you know what, your bedding is on request, we can't give you interconnecting rooms, but this is what the customer wants. Maybe the technology can do it. So you're moving to that world of short-term rental driving hotel innovation, because that's what the customers have gravitated to for a certain reason. And so using that. So I think there's going to be a nice intersection in between, and coexistence at a separate level too.
Amazing. HTV, Highgate Tech Ventures, obviously you must have tons of entrepreneurs that are wanting to work with you. How do you frame the opportunity of an entrepreneur taking investment from Highgate Tech Ventures? What are you looking for them?
Yeah.
And how's that path go?
So we're very focused. We're not a fund, but we are very focused on only investing in companies in the hospitality, travel, lifestyle sectors, clearly, where we have the domain expertise. We provide value in which can they work with the hotel group too, because we have that connection in there, because we're part of the same sort of family to help drive that, help the companies. Can they help the hotel side of it do better and be more efficient? and does it add value to both? So that's an important perspective. If we want to add value to any of the companies that we are invested in or we work with on the tech side, it's a very important parameter. If we can't add value, we really don't end up working with them. And we don't invest in a company that may end up with a super high valuation, maybe do extremely well if it's outside of the space. The other important thing that we really want to do is work with really good founders, CEOs, teams, because end of the day, I think that's what's going to drive the company's go forward.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, getting the right entrepreneurs. And how many investments have you made, and what's your sort of horizon in the next several years of how many companies you're looking to partner with?
I think we're up to 15 sort of investments that we've had, but plus the companies that we've invested in or we're part of have also made platform buys. They've acquired companies. So when you add all that up, it's a much larger number. And so across some of our companies that are continuing to grow and scale. But what I've learned is you can't do it overnight. There's no quick win. You can't think about it and you're going to win in 2 years or 3 years. The companies that actually have a core product vision driven by strong culture of employees, making sure they want to be part of that journey, and with an extreme customer focus today and for the future, coupled with the innovation and technology and not just focused on the today, are the ones that stand out the most. They're always pushing the boundaries and thinking of what more can we do to be not relevant, but to be a forward thinker, to be a leader. So those are some of the companies that we've seen that have done extremely well in ours. And it's not just about companies focused on driving revenue and a cost-cutting strategy. Costs need to be cut out if it's excessive when it's there, but continuously focus on these few pillars: the product, the employee, not just recognition, but being part of that journey, and customers. That's critical.
Amazing. You're a visionary, KJ. You're a gift to our industry and a pleasure. And anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to say?
We didn't cover anything on golf. The last round wasn't that great.
We did. The next discussion we will do on the golf course.
Yeah.
Because it's a good place for golf discussions.
What I wanted to say is, like, listen, Adam, from your perspective, I've seen what you've built out. I think you've built an amazing culture. Even though I'm not part of your company, you've never let me invest or let us invest because you're a lifestyle business more than a thing. I think at some point you'll do a combination of that lifestyle tech, which you're starting to get into. I've seen how you've taken it. It's exciting to see some of the posts. You're all about this sabbatical concept. Is interesting. I'm not much of a social media person, but I've seen a few LinkedIn stuff there. That's great. Why be just the norm? You're driving that. You want to create that feeling of being part of Spherical. It's not just about coming to work. And I think some big tech companies should learn from what you've done. So congratulations.
Appreciate that. And as you know, I've always had a boutique kind of view of things, and also, big global ambitions. And so we'll talk more about that, because I'm still young and I've got a lot of years ahead of me, and plenty of exciting things to do, and I'm sure we will have many collaborations as we have, from our start. Our start of the Knickerbocker, Nautilus, Hilton Cabana that we did with Highgate early on, that intersection of as Highgate was getting into luxury and lifestyle and looking beyond just commoditized web design, driving performance and SEO tied to that, elevating look and feel. Social, all that. So
keep that creative and lifestyle thing going. It's a lot of value for sure.
Yeah. No, there's a lot there. So, good pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you, man.
Adam.
Good fun.
Fantastic. It was great doing this.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers.